Welcome, beautiful people, to another Friday night. It's not really a Friday night interview, but technically it is. We have the founder of Meebo, Maria. How is everything?
Good, good, good. Looking forward to this meeting, although I'm camera shy, but I think we need to do this, and I'm hoping
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of people join
definitely.
us.
Because I always wanted to get somebody who had more knowledge about this thing to talk about little things, because there's always like common ideas or questions that people have, and it'd be great for you to answer some of these things. If I'm able to somehow read the comments, maybe I can ask questions that's from the chat. But before we do all of that, Maria, where are you from?
Oh, I was born in Cuba.
Mhm.
Then we moved to Chicago with my family in the early 60s.
Oh, okay.
And then,
Wow.
yeah,
I
and
thought
then,
I thought you were
and
just
refugee.
always a Miami native.
No, 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 Cuban refugee.
Mm,
Refugee. The government knocked on the door and said, everything that belongs to you now belongs to the government. You have no more properties. And, my parents said, no way. And your kids can't believe in God and whatever. So, we said, no way. So we just left pretty much with what we had on our person and went to Chicago where we had a family member. And
mm,
then eventually we moved to Miami.
So what made you transition from Chicago to Miami?
The weather.
Yeah, yeah, I
Father
guess.
had allergies up there, and we're island people used to the ocean, and and,
Mm,
we love the ocean. So here
right.
in Miami, it's nice and warm, and the ocean is there, and that's
And
about it.
I do want to ask you, I did want to ask you, how old are you?
65.
You're 65, and I do want to ask you, just like, since you do have some form of TMAL. Oh, okay. You do have some form of TMAL. When did your first memories of people making comments about your odor start?
I'd say in puberty, it manifested mainly in my breath, and so I was always brushing my teeth obsessively and chewing gum and never talking directly to people, facing them. Or I would face them, but I would maintain distance or sort of look away and that kind of thing. And just bathing more often. At first, I thought the body odor was a normal thing because mine isn't as intense as, like, for example, later my son who has primary. And I never tested until only, I don't know, when was it, 2014, 2013.
2013, when you tested yourself?
Yeah. And then it showed
Wow.
PMAU too because I was so focused on my son and on the charity and other people that I didn't think to test for myself. And the protocol really helps. Yeah.
Right.
But I
And it's
didn't
so funny
discover
because
that. Huh?
yesterday we were having a conversation about my test, and I tested in 2012, and I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're telling me that I tested way before you did?
Yeah. I waited
That's
many
so
years
funny.
before I
That's so
tested.
that's so interesting. But yeah, so for people who don't know, you are the founder of Meebo,
Yes.
and I do want to ask you, like, what made you start it and found it?
Well, our son, our older son, um, since he was an infant, he had breath odor and like the perspiration around his neck and his scalp and had strong odor, but it wasn't really strong, but it was sufficient that, like, my mom was holding him as a baby and giving him the bottle, and she looked at me, she goes, this baby has a bad breath, and
Wow.
so it's something that stayed with me, like, why would you know and then I noticed that it sort of felt familiar, like family thing, like
Hmm.
I did, and um, so I was concerned about it, but we had no explanation for it, and he didn't care. And his friends would say things like, as he grew in childhood, They were playing games or whatever, and then, oh, bro, your breath is kicking, or things like that. Or like, go take a shower, and he didn't care. He just kept playing. So it didn't matter to him until puberty, which is normal.
Hmm.
And in puberty, um, around the age of 14, he had really, really bad acne, and so they gave him Accutane. And with Accutane, that's because they had exhausted every single medication for acne, and they were also doing weekly surgeries, taking out the little cysts he had on the skin and everything. He was the most allergic patient. The asthma and allergy and asthma doctor said she had in her whole career. She was ready to retire. She says it's a miracle that he was alive. So he obviously had issues,
Hmm.
and and then after 1 year of Accutane, the odor just went like an atomic bomb.
Wow.
It was this house, his room was the walls, the furniture, everything smelled.
Hmm.
In the bathroom, we thought there was a dead animal. We almost tore it up completely. And then we started realizing, no, it's him.
Let me ask you this. So you're saying like the odor seeped into the furniture?
Yeah.
Mm.
Because TMA, we didn't know about TMAU, we didn't know about TMA. We had no idea. We thought there was an illness that the doctors were not finding. The doctors could smell it. They went, they did every test they could, and they couldn't find a thing. And so, my husband and I became extremely concerned and very, very worried, almost panicking that what's going to happen to our son. Is he gravely ill and could it be a rare disease?
Right.
And that lasted from the age of 14 to 21. So
Mm.
that was all of high school and the first 4 years of college.
Mm.
Disrupted psychologically for him.
Right.
He is a fighter, thank God, and he still had his group of friends that are still his friends all the way through high school and college. And before the odor kicked in strongly, he's good looking, and the girls were after him. But once that kicked in, they were friends, but at a distance.
Right. Right.
And so he suffered a lot with that, and as my husband and I did too. My younger son, was oblivious. He's 6 years younger than his brother, and he was in another world. He didn't care.
He was oblivious, like he pick it
Oh no,
up.
he could smell it. Everybody could smell it. There was no question. It was an
Mm.
extreme case. So one day my husband's watching TV and he calls me, like I said, oh my God, what is, he was frantic, and he goes, come here, look at this. And there was that video of I don't know if you've heard of it, the model Camille who had TMAU, primary TMAU. It's in there in the blog. I'll post it another, later. And that's where she started talking about her life with TMAU, that she had been tested, and we said, okay, that's it. Now I wrote it down, trimethylnuria TMAU. Came to my computer even during the show, and I typed it in, and I saw a very little bit of information. And I said,
Hmm.
this is it. And I kept reading about it. And so I told my son about the protocol that Dr. Shepard had written in PubMed, an article in PubMed, and I said, here, start this. And he was so happy that we found this. We were, all of us. And so he
What
started
age was
doing
he at the time when you found all this information out?
21. He was
Oh, 21.
graduating from college
Okay.
with his
Mm.
bachelor's. And he just ran and started doing it. And then one day he came in a total panic and said, Mom, the odor is worse. And I said, well, it got worse, but now it's actually getting better.
Yeah.
And he says, no, but now I can smell it so strong. I go, no, you could smell it because the saturation level in your nose is going down. When your sense of smell, olfactory system, is overloaded with too much of the odorous chemical, it gets to a point where you don't smell it. He never could smell his own odor. But as it starts going down, then it's almost like intermittent, and sometimes you don't smell anything, and all of a sudden you smell it. And that's where he started to panic. I said, no, this is a good sign. You're doing better. And little by little it went down. It took months, but he
So
brought it in.
I do want to ask you this. So you're telling me that once you saw this video of this woman named Camille and her having
Hmm.
T Mal stuff, you read some articles from Dr. Shepard and some
Hmm.
other articles, and they had like methods
Yes,
to reduce it, and then you told your son how to reduce it,
yes,
and then over time it did uh,
it
go
worked
down.
perfectly.
And
And then sorry, go ahead.
I do want to say this too, like I find it very interesting that a lot of people who have some type of odor problem, whether they have TMR or not, their parents can't detect it, or at least their parents or family members say they can't detect it, but you
Hmm.
could detect it. Your
Right.
your husband could detect it.
Yes.
Your whole family could detect it.
Yes.
So is it like maybe people who have primary trimethylaminuria can are they the only ones who have the ability, or the only ones whose family can detect it, but people who have like T-MAL type 2, will they not be able to detect it? Like I don't understand why
It's
in your
really weird.
particular
Yes.
case,
That is a
you were able to
question.
detect it, or but for other people, their family members say they can't smell anything or anything
Right.
like that.
Right. And then they test and they have TMAU. So
Right.
um, it has to do with two things: how much of the odor is TMA the sufferer is emitting, and the sensitivity of the olfactory system of the smell sense of the person who's smelling them. So, and also the familiarity of the odor. A lot of times, for example, you buy a brand new shampoo and you can smell it. It's got the fragrance, whatever, right? But if you
Hmm.
use it over and over and over, you don't smell it anymore. You just wash your hair until you stop using it, use a different one, come back to it, and you'll smell it again. So
Hmm.
there's also a familiarity. The sense of smell changes through life. Um, the strongest, when it's most keen, is around the 30s. And then later it goes getting like when you're a senior citizen, you probably don't smell. This is all scientific. I mean, it's not my theory. These are things I have actually posted in the Mebo blog with references. Everything that I post in the Mebo blog, the 1,600 some posts, every single one has a reference that I'm discussing in that post. And this is one of them where I'm discussing with numerous references about the understanding of do they smell me or not, and why do some people and why others don't. And in the worst, the most difficult for a sufferer is when it's intermittent odor, not a constant odor. And it usually triggers with the adrenaline kicking in,
Hmm.
because then you start, the skin perspires, even though you might not see the perspiration, the skin becomes more moist.
Right.
Oils are secreted. Your blood is pumping faster, and your lungs are getting it out faster
Mhm.
with the exchange of gas in the lungs. So the odors, chemicals are coming out. So usually, the most important moments of your life is when you get more adrenaline and
Right.
when it smells. And then when you're home nice and relaxed, mom and dad can't smell it. Number one, they're used to it probably, or you're not really having it that strong at that moment, things like that.
I'm curious. Have you ever heard of case? Well, I've heard of cases of sometimes women becoming pregnant and then having bad breath,
Yes.
or then having this odor problem, or other cases with teenagers and stuff. Why is there like some type of hormonal
Right.
situation always within these like weird cases where they got this
Hmm.
disorder?
Right. And not only women, but for example, in the case of my son, it was puberty, the
Right.
hormonal changes. My younger son had a little bit of odor from the age of, at the beginning of puberty until he graduated from high school. And when he just didn't grow that much, but during that whole growth hormone issue, so any hormone, it could be the females with menstruation or pregnancies, or even menopause, or men as well with the growth hormones,
Hmm.
um, and also puberty that men go through the changes. Hormonal changes, hormones are very complex from what I've been reading. Hormones are very, very complex. It's a system that it's like an ecosystem, although it's not an ecosystem, but the best way to understand it is to use that metaphor. In an ecosystem, you introduce brand new species, and it just changes everything
Hmm.
because that one eats the other one, and the other one ate that one, and got rid of their food source. So one affects the other. So any hormonal change affects the whole hormonal composition in one way or another, and it adjusts eventually. And hormones are just messengers. They tell your body, well, you have to develop now as a woman as opposed to a child, or it's time to clean out the uterus so that it prepares for childbirth for the next month,
Hmm.
or it prepares for ovulation, the hormonal changes for ovulation. So all these signals, one little thing affects everything. Like when a woman gets pregnant, all of a sudden, for example, in my case, I could sense the smell of grass and the lawn outside. And it
Mm.
was just so strong for me, I could hardly stand it. And I've never
Wow.
smelled the lawn before,
Yeah.
but it was that hormonal change.
Mm.
And in so many aspects, it just changes not only all the senses. So it would be either the sense of smell or just actually your own odor and what your liver metabolizes. Everything is controlled.
Mm. But I would think that after you've gone through puberty, maybe like the your liver will go back to normal, or I guess that's not how it works. It will
It
always
depends
stay the
on your
same.
genes. Your genes. Your genes is like the program of a computer. It will whatever process the computer does, it's regulated by that coding. Now, if part of the coding is okay, I'm just in the human body. If the coding says change your hormones at this stage, then it changes. And if those hormonal changes affect your liver, then it does until the coding changes. So there's a reproduction, hormones, um, reproduction changes the whole thing, but it's all controlled by that coding in our genes.
Hmm.
Bottom one. So the liver may be working better under certain circumstances or worse under certain circumstances. I think that Accutane, that medicine my son took for his acne,
Hmm.
it actually warned again, that he had to test his liver enzymes every month because it's actually very damaging, very stressful to the liver. And
Hmm.
I think he had TMAU1 that we didn't know, the primary one, the genetic one, um, since infancy because he had the odor coming. But when he hit two things, puberty, acne, Accutane, his liver went berserk between the hormonal changes, the medication. It was too much stress on his liver. And that metabolism requires a healthy liver.
Right.
So now that after he went through the protocol and all the cleaning, low choline diet is actually studies have shown that they actually produce fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which
Really.
means that it's a strain on the liver. So if metabolism takes place in the liver and we don't have a healthy diet to support the liver, then the odor condition will get worse, whether it be TMAU or any other, because any chemical, not only TMA, but any chemical that could be producing that has not been metabolized or that has not been digested or that maybe the bacteria in our gut produces or with the food or the environment, like the Japanese researcher was saying that Padam, for example, he said it has to do with the environment, or at least what he was studying was how the environment affects these chemicals in the body. So
Hmm.
all these things that eventually go to the liver and have to be metabolized. But if the liver is strained by maybe taking too many drugs or alcohol or um, uh, your medicines. It doesn't. When I say drugs, I don't mean necessarily street drugs. So of course that
Right.
makes a difference. But any medication, or stronger, or some medications more than others, you're putting a strain on the liver at where the metabolism is supposed to be, and your metabolism genetically is not as strong because of that genetic fault or whatever reason, is not as strong as it should be. you're giving that poor liver two, double whammy. It's got
Hmm.
the genes and it's got the environment. So it's very important to eat healthy, to detox the liver, um, and especially if you have this genetic, and to try to figure out which chemical. That's a big question there. Which chemical is the one that's causing your odor? Um,
Right.
and is it something in your gut that's producing it from what you're eating? That's why we were doing the ubiome research study to see, to understand the gut composition of sufferers, and
Hmm.
depending on how they say, what they ate, and the moods because of the hormonal changes. That's why we had the quality of life test as part of the ubiome study. How are you feeling today? Are you depressed? Are you stressed? And then
Right.
how's your odor level? These type of questions, because it's all one big picture that is starting to come together. When I first started Mevo, I knew nothing of any of this. I really just thought my son had a great illness. Um, with this, then I started discovering TMAU, but TMAU that they were mainly focused on was the primary, the genetic. But
Hmm.
only 3 to 5%, according to Monell's statistics, according to the Mevo 5-year TMAU test program, and the since 1997 the UK TMAU test program, um, determined that only 3 to 5% of sufferers who take the test have primary TMAU. That means that 95% have something else.
Right.
So that's where Nebo started doing exploratory studies. That people say, oh my God, why are you even looking at that area? There's because we had to explore it. There was nothing else to turn to. What else could it be?
That is interesting because I know you also told me with some of these tests, like 70% of the people don't actually have type 1 or type 2. They might
Right.
have something else. And I do recall in the Meebo blog, there was some scientists who found out something called Selin BP1, and that's supposed
Yes.
to explain why some people have sulfuric bad breath or something like that. I
Yes.
do want to talk about that a little bit or ask some questions about that,
Yes. Yes.
but there
That's.
are some questions in the chat I do want to
Oh, okay.
respond or uh, let you hear. So, one question from Xerxu is, what is her background?
My background?
Yes.
Oh, I guess you didn't hear that. Cuban American. I'm
Okay.
an American citizen. I came as a child from Cuba as a refugee.
And another question from Rico YouTube is, does Maria know about the pill for T-Mal?
Yes, that's Dr. Hazen's. Okay, let me explain a little bit about Dr. Hazen. Dr. Hazen is a medical doctor, researcher at the Cleveland Clinic, um, and he got a multi-million dollar grant to do research for cardiovascular disease, not for TMAU. But he started to see that TMAO levels in the blood, that means those that have been metabolized, can actually, high levels of those can cause cardiovascular disease. So when we saw that, this is what Nevo does. We try to piggyback on somebody else's research.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw Dr. Hazen is doing research on TMA, even though it's for cardiovascular disease. We approached him, introduced ourselves, introduced TMAU. He was not familiar at all with TMAU, but he's brilliant. He catches on immediately. And we told him that in the United States, we really would prefer, could he help us? Would he be interested in researching us? And he was, because he's studying TMA, and he
Right.
said, this group's pretty interesting. So he said, I'll tell you what, I'll design a TMAU test program for you. So the test he did was designed from scratch. He developed that test. It was this different instrument that was being used in the UK and
Right.
also in the Monell in Philadelphia. And he said, we're only going to charge you $100 for the test. Mind you, in the other place, they were charging $400.
Right.
plus shipping and everything else. So we jumped at that, and he said, "But you could charge 150, and that gives Nebo the $50 to be able to keep the company going because we have no income at all.
Right.
So and you need money, minimal, but you need it." So we said, "Great." And then I thought, okay, that's here in the United States, but how about all the people and all the sufferers throughout the world that don't get any test or any hope at all whatsoever of doing the test? So I asked him, could we do it internationally? And we did. So to make a long story short, we started doing that. And then he is developing that supplement since then, and this is 2012, and he had been studying it since way before that. So it's a really thorough research study, NIH funded, millions of
Mhm.
dollar grant. Um, and this supplement, he started to determine that it was going to, and it is, actually blocking TMA production in the gut by gut
Mhm.
bacteria because it starts with eating choline, carnitine, something else I forgot right now. But you eat that, and the bacteria eats it, and let's say it's like the bacterial poop is TMA,
Okay.
and that's what then goes into the intestines. So he says, okay, and then it goes to the liver, and then if you get, and then where it adds an oxygen molecule to TMA so that it doesn't smell. TMA is what smells.
Okay.
TMAO, where you add the oxygen, O for oxygen, that doesn't smell. But that's what causes cardiovascular disease, TMAO, which is his concern, which has nothing to do with TMAU. But the interesting thing for TMAU is that his supplement works in the gut by blocking that bacteria. It's almost like saying, no, you cannot eat the choline. So then you eat the choline, you can have a healthy liver. It goes into your liver without the poop of the bacteria, which is TMA, so no odor. And so that was very exciting to us. And so that's why he wanted to do research. And we've kept all the records of, of our uh, people that did the test because then he could determine, yes, okay, 5% have primary, another 25% have secondary, and then 70% don't. So they have another cause. It has nothing to do with TMA or TMAU or the, and he did his test showed whether you have primary or secondary because here in the United States, it was only being tested for primary. In the
Hmm.
UK, they were testing primary and secondary. So now his product is still in research. And we were hoping that it was going to be ready in the market a year or two ago. And he wants to help us. In fact, if we don't push him away with too many questions and constantly, nagging him, he's actually interested in once he gets the product out and for cardiovascular disease, he wants to research us, those who have TM, who are positive in his tests, um, to try to officially through FDA um, make the claim that that medication can be used for TMAU so that doctors will prescribe it.
Hmm.
Because right now there's a major divide between the TMAU community and the medical institution because there's no education on it. There's no
Right.
research that says this is the medication you give your patient who claims to or whose test shows that they have TMAU. So if his research is being driven by the research results, we don't know when the pill will be ready. I know everybody wants it yesterday,
Hmm.
but we don't know. And we can't rush him. If we start rushing, he's going to start blocking us out. And he might
Right.
want to work with us in the future.
Yeah, there's a lot to say about that because another thing is like I'm curious as to like what would be other ways to get other scientists or medical professionals to look into this case. But I do want to like read it. I want to read the comments to give people, people are writing stuff, but I really want to ask so much stuff just about that.
I
But
know.
I'm just reading the comments. So another question is from Zerksu. And he says, so if a male has this, which offspring will this manifest in, daughter or son?
It could be either one, or it could be none of them. It could be for a short period of time only during some growth hormone, like my younger son only had it like for 4 years. And it wasn't that strong and it was intermittent. And he would, with grooming, he could more or less manage to wipe it off real quick from his skin or his mouth, you know. But eventually a girlfriend will say, okay, go brush your teeth, you know. Um, and that's okay. I taught them to be open about it. You know, it's
Right.
okay. There's also the whole emotional thing because that affects the hormones. The emotions affect the hormones.
Mm.
What was that question again?
Yeah, so he was just basically asking if which
Oh yeah,
offspring would
the
it affect daughter or
offspring.
son if you're a male?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know that much in detail about the genetics of it, you know, but it's like all genetic inheritance. You know, sometimes the child will have the father's traits more than the mother's traits, or it could be from grandparent to grandchild kind of passing. You can have a very active gene, or it could be sort of like a dormant gene kind of thing, where it's not that really triggering the disease. But so much has been learned. So many sufferers, not only of TMAU, but of other causes that we really still don't understand, have managed to control their condition. And so much more is understood about the gut influence, hormonal influences. I mean, so many things that in just the 11 years that I've been working with Evo, um, that I believe that by the next generation, you know, when my grandchildren or your children would grow, they would have a lot more that they can work with. And if we really keep Dr. Hazen, you know, not running, we don't repel him with so many questions and just to let him, he's interested in studying us. Dr. Shepard just submitted some request for funding for more research, but she was denied. But we're ongoing. This is not ending. That's why I don't want to end NEVO. I want NEVO to continue going because we're forever trying to reach out to different experts and do whatever research we can get our hands on. And eventually, our children, like, look at my son. He's now, since he controlled it, he was 21, now he's 33.
Right.
He's got a girlfriend, he's got a wonderful career. He's happy. In fact, that's why he said, Mom, please go ahead and feel free to talk about me in the charity, but please let me go live my life. You can use my case all you want. That's my contribution to other sufferers, but let me now begin enjoying my life without always focusing on TMAU. So that's what we did. We did that agreement and we wrote up, you know, exactly how he did it, and it's there in the files sections of Facebook. And there are ways, and so many sufferers tell me, you know, you saved my life. Nevo saved my life, not Nevo. Nevo saved my life. Um, so don't stop. Don't decide to not have children for fear of them having what my son had, which is the extreme case. Um, because even if he has it, there's a way to work it out.
Mm.
Not a cure
Right.
yet. Yet.
Not a cure yet. But another question I do have from the chat is from Harden54, and she asks, "What do you know about PATM? Thank you for your interview tonight."
Mhm. Oh, you're welcome. We have the one researcher that we know of that's the only one who's taken interest in PATM, and in Japan, Dr. Sekine, and he's a professor at the university in Tokyo, and he he works. His primary focus or his specialization in his field is to study the environment and how buildings, for example, affect health. And so he became interested and he wanted to do research with that perspective. How does the environment affect Adam? Because that's where he, you know, that's what we asked some of sufferers, I think in Asia asked him. And so he did that research. And his son, just because he's in Tokyo, we're in Tokyo, and they worked with the environment in Tokyo, in the buildings there. And they came up with a few chemicals that are found in the environment that were found in the, I don't remember if it was the breath or the blood or both, but he did that study and he came up with that conclusion that in that case, in that environment, those were the chemicals.
Hmm.
Um, so we're kind of hoping to be able to go back to him, but again, you got to treat researchers because we're not paying them
Right.
because we don't have any money.
Yeah.
So we want them to be inspired to help us. So we have to treat them with
Mhm.
kid gloves. We can't overwhelm them.
Right.
Um, we have to slowly. So he just did that research, whatever. And Mehmet Ali, he's one of the directors of MEVO. He's the one who's been, who communicates with him, and we're trying to do a game plan. Um, to see how we can best approach him when the time comes, and maybe try to get him to do another research project. That would have to be funded by Japanese government.
Right. But that's my thing about this PATM stuff. Like the first, I guess, case that, or the first person that like studied it was all the way in Japan. Like we don't have anything in like America
Exactly.
or the UK or Europe. Like
Right.
the fact that we don't have enough
Yes.
money to fund anything, but it always boggles my mind that America's not going to. There's not going to be any doctor that's a little bit intrigued enough to say, "Hey, let me look into this too," or
Right.
something like that.
That's
Is
why
anything just going back to money? Like, since we don't have money, we
always.
can't go to this doctor and say, "Hey, there's this weird condition. Can you look into this? I know it's somewhat similar in your field. Can you look into this and figure out what's going on?"
Yes.
It's
A
like,
lot of times they just think we're crazy. You
yeah,
know, that happens. But what we have found, that's why the ubiome study also involves pattern. And the questions that Irene has asked people when they collect their sample also have to do with are people experiencing allergic reactions. And we have found that there are sufferers who have proven, or, have had test results that they have TMAU, primary and secondary, whose
primary and
children,
secondary.
huh?
You said primary and secondary. They had both.
Well, no, I mean multiple sufferers,
Mm,
some with primary, some with secondary,
okay.
whose children, their own children, when they come and play with them, start sneezing, start rubbing their eye, teary-eyed, and the whole allergic thing. And then when the child moves away from the parent, the sufferer, the symptoms seem to decrease, the allergic
Right.
symptoms. So TMA is also an irritant. Um, so it's not only the environment.
Right.
In fact, one of the researchers um, in the 90s, 1990s, from the Denver University, he has worked with TMA. He's one of the ones who I think discovered, or one of the founders of TMAU. He says that he doesn't smell it. Here we go back to why do families not? He said, and they get it from a lab, a pure TMA. The thing is a bomb. He says they open the jar and the whole lab, everybody smells. Oh my God, he opened the TMA, jar, and he doesn't smell it, but he starts getting teary eyed. His eyes start tearing, like if he had a cold, or an allergy.
Hmm.
So I think it has to do more with it could be any of the chemicals that cause odor, or any chemicals that come out of our body that don't cause odor. Um, but our bodies have it for some reason. Metabolism is not doing what it's supposed to do, and then it stays free in our blood, which then comes out through the breath. It comes out through the skin because the cleansing organs go into overdrive. Say this doesn't belong here. Let's get it out, and that's where it smells, or where it's just coming out, and other people react to it.
Hmm.
And people who have pattern, normally don't have everybody have an allergic reaction because there's again two. It's like there's two people involved: the sufferer who has producing and emitting this chemicals,
Right.
compounds, and the person perceiving it, whether it be through the sense of smell or allergic reactions.
Right. But I've actually interviewed a couple of people who have PATM,
Hmm.
and I always try to figure out like what would be the best way for people in America who have PATM to try to get more awareness or get people to talk about their conditions. I don't know. Who would you have to contact? Where
Yeah.
would be the best source to go to
I
possibly
wish there
get
would
that
be one that
information
I
out to
could
your client?
say, this is the resource where you can go to get treatment. Nobody even identifies it, nobody even recognizes it in the medical field. I don't know of anybody other probably than Mimo and our support groups that actually recognize it. And we have to just keep going forward and document. That's what Ubiome Test is going to do. It's going to document, and she's going to discuss what similarities. Unfortunately, of the 100 people that we were going to participate, only 40 did the whole thing. So now we have a much smaller group. But what something is better than nothing, and the of those 40, quite a few. In fact, I made it a point to pick people who not only had odor conditions but PATM conditions to
Mm,
invite them to be participants. And so we have quite a few that say that they either have just PATM or have both odor and PATM. And then there are those who don't have PATM just or haven't observed anybody having an allergic reaction to them. They just have odor.
right.
So at least there we can start documenting. And then we can start hoping that the medical field takes us, scientific and medical field, start taking that data seriously. Had it been the larger group, everyone participated, then we would have a larger group. We would have had 100 people, and they would say, oh, that's interesting. Out of 100 people, yeah, the data could be more valid. Out of 40 people, it's still a good group. It's not a bad group. But
Mm.
sometimes research is done like in groups of 10 or 15, as a suggestion to create a hypothesis for a larger research.
Hmm. I do want to ask you this, but I actually forgot. Yeah,
I'm
I do want
sorry.
to ask you this because with PATM, there are some people who just have just allergic reactions, and then there's some people who also have allergic reactions and also have like odor. Do you feel
Yeah.
like there's a possibility to have like T-MAL and PATM or
Yes,
PATM
yes.
and some
No, I
weird
know that. I know that it's the case. Like I
condition?
said, there was, for example, one case where it's a definite genetic mutation. I mean, it showed in the test genetic mutation, TMAU diagnosis, in the biochemical test, in the genetic test. And this poor man, when his children get close to him, children, little ones. So it's, there's no power of suggestion there with the kids. The kids are upfront about everything, and you could just see it. They would cough, they would get congested, they would get teary eyed, and then they separate from the father, and the symptoms of allergies would decrease. So, yes, and like that doctor, the scientist, he had an allergic reaction to the chemical alone. So this is what we have to understand. It's that if somebody is allergic to a chemical your body is emitting.
And the
Something is
thing,
coming out of your breath, something is coming out of your perspiration, and it's
right.
going into the environment. You don't have to smell it, but it's there. So that's what we need to try to identify. What chemicals are they? TMA can be, his wife doesn't get allergic to him, but his children did. So it doesn't mean that every single person, and his children didn't even realize they were just playing with daddy and having fun and whatever. And chew it, and then go away and think nothing of it.
And the thing is like I know with some people who have T-MAL, if they do meetups, they can't smell each other.
No.
Would you feel like that'll be the same with people who have PATM
Yeah.
or even people who have PATM and T-MAL? Like if they two met up with each other. Have you ever met with somebody who had PATM, and did you ever
Yes.
react?
No. No, wait, one person. Yes, I forgot. One person. It would just make me cough. I'm asthmatic,
Mm-hmm.
although I have it totally under control. Um, but when I would get near this person and they were speaking, I would do that. Not necessarily, and I would smell something, but it wasn't even odor. It was just something.
Hmm.
But it wasn't. I couldn't even say this person has an odor condition. I
Yeah,
just
you couldn't
my
even
chest
describe
would
what the
tighten
odor
up.
was.
Huh?
You couldn't even describe what the odor was when
Right.
you.
It wasn't because I wouldn't even call it odor.
Mm,
It was musty, maybe.
mm,
It's almost like smelling Coca-Cola. It's not
hmm,
really odor. And
right.
then later, I found out this person drinks a lot of Coke. You know.
Hmm. That's
So
interesting.
yeah, this is what I'm telling you. It's so important to eat natural foods, nothing that has chemicals. There are people, I've seen, I've gone to, especially in wintertime, I've gone out and I've seen people whose hair is just so oily and I look at them, I go, maybe because it's cold, they didn't shower and they just have such oily skin and there's no odor. Oh my God, if my hair was that oily,
Right.
it would kill all the roaches in the building.
Right.
You
Yeah, I
know?
definitely can understand that, man.
No, no. So how could that be? Okay, maybe that person then can drink all the Coke she wants. She must have the strongest liver I've ever seen. You know,
Right.
they just study her liver. But that's life. That's life. Unfortunately, I can't. And if I have, a couple of eggs and a fish and lobster, oh boy, you
Yeah.
know, that kind of thing. But she could probably eat all those steaks and fish and lobster and not take a bath every day, and her hair could be oily, dripping down, and she won't smile.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, that is the case. I guess we do just have weak livers, but
Yes, there's something in the
there's
metabolism.
yeah, but there are a number of other questions that are on the chat, and I
Hmm.
need to get through these. Jack Meal asks, can testing program be back in the future?
Oh,
Can,
we'd love for it to be. In fact, it is essential that NEPO start a testing program. We have, unfortunately, I got sick and we had to put it on hold. And then UBIOM offered us this uh, grant, and so we just went that way, but the other is on hold. We have approached a university here in the United States that's very reputable. I mean, it receives NIH funding for research to no end. And we introduced ourselves and what we're doing, and we looked up, what their scientists and professors are doing, and we established a conversation about three of our directors, me included. And one day we finally got to the right person, and we started discussing creating a test panel, not only for TMAU, but of other things in hopes of seeing discovering what other causes there could be. I don't remember exactly what it is. I have it written there because it was over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. But it's a TNAU test, choline levels on the blood in the blood, different chemicals as well in the blood, and then we said, okay, how much is that going to be? Like the because it would all fall under the umbrella of research, and so she just gave us such a low price. Apparently, they would have, they could probably pull a little bit from the research grants. Again, we try to piggyback on other things.
right.
And it was so fantastic. And the good thing about that is we could maybe add $25 to it or something because the justification to do that is there has to be a MEBO volunteer, which in the first case was me. I was the only one who would do the take orders, billing, then send work with the lab. In other words, that they wouldn't have to hire somebody to do some work. I did it as a volunteer. So my work, instead of getting a salary because I can't as a director and I don't want it,
Hmm.
it would go to Meeble. And so that's what covered all the expenses that Meeble needed to continue operating, because we do have annual returns, etc. In the UK and here, and you have to hire people to do different things. Although thankfully everybody's volunteered, but still, like websites and stuff like that. What was I saying? So if we can get volunteers for this new phase of Nero, when I step down, to actually do take orders, and volunteer to do the billing and
Hmm.
collect everything, and then pay the lab what their share, that we can keep a little bit of the money to keep Nebo going. It's a fundraising way to do it.
Hmm.
And it will help us then, because then, oh, and the one of the things, the next step was that they wanted us, our next call with this university would be to have Irene, the Meebo scientist, because we have to have a scientist representing us, would then take all the data and analyze it. Like Dr. Hazen took all our TMAU and tests, and wants to analyze it for future research.
Hmm.
So it's all in the works. We're just a lot going on. Nebo has really accomplished quite a bit in all volunteer staff.
Mm. And is there like any other like ways that, I mean, let's say there's somebody who actually wants to help Meebo. Is there like a way that we could do some type of fundraising thing? Is there
Yes,
any ideas that you already had that you thought would be a good fundraising idea so we can,
uh-huh.
keep adding more money into the
Yeah.
organization?
Well, I haven't been I'm not very good at with money or fundraising or anything like that. I got to admit, but there are a lot of people in our community that are very interested in that. Ben Dembella, he came up
Mm,
with a list
Ben,
of a few
shout out
projects.
to Ben.
Huh?
I said shout out to Ben. I mean, I know him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there are others who have. There's a list there of others who have who are willing to volunteer and do fundraising things. And so I think there should be one of, because we're going to restructure the whole directorship when I step down, and there should be one or more people in charge of a whole fundraising. And one of the things that will be necessary is the media thing that you and Ben want to do. And I think
Mm.
there's somebody else, possibly teaming you up, he might want to do
Oh,
it as
team out
well.
up, team out up. Shout out to him too.
Yeah. And start coordinating activities and ask for volunteers to meet up with you, and start organizing fundraising projects to see. They were talking about either T-shirts, or Karen was mentioning in the meeting. We had a meeting, and we're going to have the next meeting on August 11th, about wristbands that are actually, it just says something, invisible disease or invisible disability or something like that. So that when people see, first they think, where's that coming from? And the odor. And then they see the bands, oh, invisible disease. Okay, well, there must be something. And you haven't said anything. You haven't had a conversation like on an airplane flight, kind of thing. But yes, it's definitely a movement that needs to be, a project that needs to be launched.
Mm. I do have another question from Chantel Jenkins. She says, I just joined. She might have answered this already. Did she cause others to cough and sneeze and clear their throats at her presence?
Well, I've never noticed it. Um, I don't think I do, because I'm not, my symptoms are not that strong. My son might have. I didn't know. I wasn't always around, his social events. I know that I had asthma, so maybe he was doing it. In fact, he had severe allergies. So
Mm,
I got a feeling like his allergy and asthma, because he's also asthmatic, not anymore, but when he had TMAU, he had rash on his arms and hands.
wow.
He had asthma. Um, well, like they said, he was the most asthmatic case in all of their practice, and they have, I don't know how many offices all over South Florida.
Hmm.
And as TMA, you symptoms decreased, as his TMA level decreased in his own body, his allergies are gone. Now he's
You mean
sleeping.
allergies like seasonal, or you just mean allergies like?
No, total congestion, asthma with pumps,
Mhm.
and rashes all over his arms and behind his knees.
Mm.
Bad. Always going to dermatologists, always going to asthma specialists. He did the allergy shots for 2 years, and it helps, but he still had rashes. The rashes didn't go away until his TMA odor went away.
And that happened because of the diet, basically. After you just
Yeah.
eating a specific diet, all these
Hmm.
like abnormalities started to wane or
Right.
disappear.
Right. But not only did that, he did the whole protocol because he also learned how to use activated charcoal at the right time. But now all he does, he doesn't even follow the diet strictly anymore because all he does is cardiovascular because he doesn't want to hurt his liver. He strengthened his liver a lot by eating very healthy, but he runs 2 miles a day, like 4 or 5 days a week, and he goes to the gym and he loves doing the boxing
Hmm.
thing. He likes that, but just everything makes him sweat it all out, and anything that's going to stink comes out. Takes a shower, and he's fine.
So,
He drinks moderately, not socially, but if he drinks too much, then he starts smelling.
so essentially, what you're saying is that if we really just go full force into trying to strengthen our liver, we might
Yes,
be able to reduce it dramatically.
yes. It's a control method. It's not a cure. Because if
Hmm.
your gene is programmed to do, you program a computer to do one job, you can't expect it to do something else. But you can really tweak it and make sure there's no malwares and all this other crap going in there, just
Right.
interrupting what it's supposed to be doing.
Because
That's the best way to explain it.
because the thing is, like, I know that there's lots of like herbs and spices are supposed to help remove fatty liver or reduce fatty
Yes,
liver, but at the same time, I know with people with TMAO, there's certain herbs and spices you can't actually take. And I don't know if they're like they would conflict. Like, I'm not sure if, for example, the one I'm thinking about is turmeric. I don't know if you ever, I
I
think
take it
turmeric.
every day,
Oh, you take it every day?
every day. And the reason one one of the biggest confusion, which is so tormenting for sufferers, is that they start doing something that really makes sense and their odor gets worse. And they say, no, it's not working. On the contrary, it makes it worse. No, it's working. The
Mm,
problem is that you have to understand there's always step one and step two. Step one is decrease the whatever's triggering it, strengthen your liver so it works well. And then there's step two, the cleansing organs, to say, wow, great. We're not getting this overload anymore. We got to clean this out real fast. And the odor gets worse. And then what is the body cleans it all out because it's all coming out, so it's got to smell. Then eventually it starts decreasing in the blood, so the odor starts decreasing. And that's usually when the sufferer begins to smell it if they couldn't smell it before. And then
mm,
eventually it goes away. But what
mm.
happens during that whole process is that we're listening to the body but not understanding the body. So
Right.
we stop what was working.
Hmm. That's interesting. Because I did have a couple of conversations with I did have a couple of conversations with I forgot her name. Oh my God, Chrisan. And
Hmm.
I know she was telling me that like things like antihistamines or histidines
Yes,
um
histamine.
actually worsen your odor, but I think like
Yes.
there's certain herbs or certain like spices that are supposed to be good for your liver. And I think they have histidines. So it makes me think to myself like what can you
Yeah.
really take if it's supposed to be bad for you, then why would you take it, you know? I don't know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know exactly what she's referring to, but I know that one of the researchers that has done presentations for our annual meetup, His group, he's in Germany, and his German group of researchers discovered that when histamine is something that the body secretes when they're having an allergic reaction. So that's why when you're having an allergic reaction, you take an antihistamine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, histamine can also, they found it in the gut. And when that happens, it irritates the wall of the gut. And then some chemicals could be passing the wall of the gut, not the feces, but some chemicals, like TMA is a chemical compound. And then there could be others, sulfur or different types, that can go into the bloodstream. It's a burden on the liver because immediately from the gut it goes to the liver, everything, and that's where it's metabolized and processed, and then it goes to the main bloodstream for the body to clean out or to use as energy or nutrition, whatever you need. So I'd have to review that a little bit and to find out what I don't remember, but that was when we did the meetup here in Miami Beach. But there he recommends certain um, what do you call it, supplements and stuff to take to control the histamine in the gut. So
Mm.
that's another could be a totally non-TMAU related cause of odor condition or pattern
Order Patum
or
or
PHC.
Patum. Oh, okay. Hmm. All right.
Yeah, there's
Well,
a lot of information. It's so difficult to get it all out there. So what you're doing here is very good.
yeah, yeah, and I really appreciate you for coming on because there's so much questions I really want to ask, but then I do have to go back to the chat. Harden54 asks, "What food choices and supplement does your son use to reduce and or eliminate allergic reactions from people?"
Uh-huh. Um, it's different phases of this whole 12 years. So I would say initially he had to follow a low choline diet because he had TMA. And the TMA is what caused allergic reactions in others and in himself. Um, and it was low choline and supplements. He really took advantage of. Initially, he did lactase, which was prescription. Oh, is it lactase? No, no. Lactulose. Lactulose is actually what do you call it? That makes you go to have bowel movements. I forgot the name of it, but that's
Like
prescription strength.
laxative?
No, yeah, laxative. It's a prescription strength. They use that for people who have very liver disease and like they're in the hospital or whatever, and they need to help it clean out. So because it absorbs ammonia and it absorbs a lot of chemicals and it forces it out in the feces. But
Mm.
that's prescription strength, and his doctor, because he smelled and we showed him the protocol and he could detect the odor, he gave him the prescription. But he took it a few times. But boy, it's a real laxative. I mean, you're in the toilet. Um, and that as his TMA decreased, then his own allergies and whoever may have allergies to his TMA decreased. It just went away. But that was at the beginning. But he only did that a couple of times because you can't be next to a toilet all the time.
Right.
So what he did is, especially when he wanted to go to a party or something like that, he would take activated charcoal. You can really OD on activated charcoal, and it'll help you.
Right.
When people OD, with drugs or whatever, and,
They
and
use
you end
activated.
up in emergency room, they give you mega doses of activated charcoal because
Mm-hmm.
charcoal, again, is like a sponge. It's full of little
Absorbs.
holes. It absorbs all those chemicals and out it goes in the feces. So you could do that. If you're going to go drink, and you say, oh boy, this is definitely going to be a burden on my liver, and then it's not going to metabolize right, and it's going to come out my pores, and other people are going to start sneezing, um, or I myself might have a reaction, or it could produce odor. Then before you even have your drink, pop a few of those. They sell them over the counter, Walgreens, CVS, anywhere. Get those activated charcoal
Charcoal tablets.
tablets. And then when you come home again, do it again. In fact, it'll help you not have a hangover too.
Yeah.
Because again, it's
I
definitely
always,
intoxication.
yeah, that I was gonna say that. Like, I always use activated charcoal, but I've heard that, there are some stories that long-term use is actually bad for
Yes,
you. Um,
because it
and it
doesn't
could cause
churn.
constipation as well.
And what?
And it could cause constipation as well, taking
Yes,
activated charcoal a
yes, you
lot.
have to balance that out. So that's what I said. It's just like an emergency type thing. If you're going to go to a social event and you don't want to, then you do it. But if you never take it with your vitamins, if you're going
Hmm.
to take any
Right.
supplement or vitamins or the healthy food that you say, this is my healthy food for today, don't take charcoal because then what's going to happen is all the nutrients are going to go right out with that charcoal. So you have to, again, everything is so much like learning a lifestyle
Right.
to keep you going. I use sometimes resveratrol, which is extremely expensive, so I hardly ever use it. But when I went to meetups, I would use it. And in fact, I would take the bottle, and some of the people there, wanted to try it, and they tried it, and it really helps. But the problem is that I don't know if that's what contributed to my, because I was on a low choline diet for 10 years,
Wow.
and eventually I developed, what do you call it? Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Hmm.
And it got to the point where my doctors just started calling me. When your doctor starts calling you, you know something's really wrong because
Right.
we were very concerned that the liver enzymes that indicate that the liver is failing started to just go up and up and up and up and up, and they started to get very dangerous. And they scared me. They said, if this continues, you will have liver shutdown and you're going to die. That's why I'm saying I've been sick and I haven't been able to, but we were able to remedy it. The good thing about the liver is it regenerates.
Right.
You can kill it, you can die, or you can say, okay, I'm going to work with this. And I started eating choline. I started to have to do cardiovascular exercise because when you eat choline, you have to, it builds TMA, and then that's the odor. So then you got to help the cleansing organs. So when you learn the big picture, when you see the big picture, then you learn how to handle it. And eventually it's just second nature.
So do you feel like the choline diet isn't really helpful? I mean, it's helpful for reducing the odor, but at the same
Right.
time,
Oh, it
long
could kill
term,
you.
it's going to affect you in
It
a
could kill
negative
you.
way.
It's an essential nutrient, and one sufferer, for some reason, took it overboard to an extreme, and he did almost zero choline, and in 1 month's time, he was in intensive care in the hospital. It
Mm,
is an essential nutrient. If you don't eat choline, you will die.
wow.
So, and if you just have a low choline diet, lower than what is recommended, then you eventually the liver gets diseased.
Hmm.
That's why I always, it sounds so cliche that just eat healthy, definitely avoid processed foods, avoid chemical foods like Coca-Colas, and that's all chemical. I couldn't, if you really started to think about it, I used to drink a lot of Diet Coke, and
Yeah.
and then you think, what am I drinking? Literally chemicals.
Yeah.
There's no
Right.
nutritional value. So
Hmm.
what's happening to the liver if you have a condition, whether it be whatever condition that produces some kind of chemical that shouldn't stay in your blood, but because it's not metabolizing it right. So and that chemical could produce allergies in yourself or in others. How many of us are asthmatic? How many of us have different autoimmune diseases? I had a huge autoimmune disease,
Hmm.
and for 26 years. And so we have to really just focus on nature. What was, what, how is a human body really intended? How did we survive thousands of years as human beings? By eating natural foods. Now, for some reason, the society developed in trying to produce more money, and then they started processing foods, and they started
Adding more sugar.
chemicals and all that stuff. Yeah, preservatives. And our livers, some people's liver can handle anything and everything. You have people who drink alcohol 24 hours a day for years and years and years and don't die of liver disease. And then you have others that will die of liver disease. So,
I do have a question from Chantel Jenkins, and she asks, can she smell her own odor?
me, yes.
Yes.
And my son couldn't when it was very, very strong, but he can now that it's controlled.
Mm.
He knows when it's time to go to the gym.
So he doesn't actually exercise every day. It's only once he starts to pick up the fact that he gets a whiff of this unpleasant smell. That's when he's like, okay, now I have to be more strict on my diet. That's now I have to exercise more or
Hmm.
whatever.
Well, he's gotten to the point where he's addicted. Like athletes, they become addicted. Like if you don't do the workout, your body just doesn't feel right. You got to go and go do that workout. It's like, I don't know, something, I don't know. There's some explanation to it, which I don't know. So he enjoys going out and running his 2 miles and sweating. You see the sweat just pour down, you know. But sometimes, like, if he and his girlfriend, we were, like I said, we're island people. We love the ocean, and we live off the ocean. We used to love fish, and we love fish and lobsters and everything. So to them, like a special date is to go out and have crabs or lobster or fish.
Right.
So he knows it's coming. He knows that the odor will be there, and he immediately senses it, and he says, okay, I really gotta, like, by the next morning I gotta go out and run. you know
And I got a question about this. Maybe you don't know this, but is just doing a sauna, going to the sauna, equivalent to just running because you're sweating
it,
out these toxins, or is there
yes.
more to it with cardiovascular exercise?
Right. With cardiovascular, the difference is that with cardiovascular exercise, your heart beats faster. So when the heart beats faster, the blood circulates faster through the cleansing organs. It's like if you have a filter and then the water sort of just slowly, there's a slow current and it goes through the filter. Or if all of a sudden you turn on an engine and that thing goes real fast through that filter, it's
Mhm.
going to clean it faster. So in both cases, you're going to sweat, you're going to perspire. But if your blood is pumping faster through your kidneys and drinking a lot of water, it'll clean it out faster. It'll get more concentration out faster.
Hmm.
That's the only
So
difference.
would you also say like the intensity of the workout would cleanse your body better than like something that's very I don't know,
Right,
like walking or something like that,
right.
something
Like
very high.
yoga is more mellow, more relaxed. It's a strenuous thing. But do you feel your pulse go fast? Do you breathe deeply? Breathing deeply is just a perfect example. When you're breathing deeply, that means your lungs is getting so much bombarded with that fast blood, and there's so much gas exchange in the lungs that is pushing it out. So that's why your
Mm.
body even starts breathing faster.
Hmm.
You can sit in the sauna and just breathe real nice and relaxed. You're doing yoga and you're taking nice deep breaths. But if you're doing cardiovascular, it's different
Mm.
because the blood is forcing that breathing pattern.
That's interesting because I felt like if I just sweat out the odor, I'm probably just releasing toxin. But I never really thought like based on the intensity of the exercise, or
Right.
you're probably going to release more toxins or
Exactly.
cleanse yourself better doing it.
Exactly.
I never thought that way.
And
That's
drink a lot of
interesting.
water so that while the blood goes through the kidneys, the kidneys also another filter, and it gets it out in the urine, a
Hmm.
higher concentration.
Let me ask you this. What do you feel about like probiotics? Do you think that helps in some way? Or do you feel like for people with TMAL, it's not really that effective in reducing the odor?
Right. If you just rely on probiotics, it's not going to do a thing. But if you combine it with the proper healthy diet, so you're feeding the good bacteria and you're introducing the good bacteria, then you got to look at it as a very the gut like has like so many different types of microorganisms, and they're all fighting for prime real estate, and they're all fighting for you know, to grow their own population. So if all of a sudden you take a lot of antibiotics, you're usually killing the good bacteria, which is weaker, and the bad bacteria produces all these smelly stuff. That's really strong. They resist in general most or many antibiotics. So taking antibiotics, you kill the good bacteria. What does that do? It leaves a big empty space for the other one to grow. So what you've done is actually they at first might hide because that's how they survive. In fact, there are some microorganisms that actually create like a shell when they're being threatened. And then
Mm.
when the threat is released, then or is gone, then they remove their shell and continue growing. So if there's now a new empty space because the good bacteria died, then that bad bacteria is going to take over that space. And what you've done is actually created a larger source of odorous condition or chemicals that could produce allergies for yourself or for others. And
Mm.
that's why the probiotic, if you ever have to take antibiotics, it's really highly recommended that you take probiotics because then you're not going to leave that void. You're not going to leave that empty space. And
Right.
the bad bacteria can't grow. In addition, let's see. Oh, the probiotics, those type of bacteria, unless you said really good diet and a perfect environment and without a great deal of histamine in the gut, you know, like heaven in your gut, they don't. The levels go back to the way they normally were. They don't live as they're not that strong.
Oh, that's interesting. I
Yeah.
never heard that.
Yeah, so you would have to keep taking them. That's why another reason why you shouldn't put preservatives, you know, junk food and stuff in it. Always eat healthy. Make sure you have some fiber. Um, avoid constipation. Avoid diarrhea. Diarrhea means it's irritated. You don't want to irritate your intestines. You want to create a heavenly place for the good bacteria to live in your gut.
Hmm.
You want to be there.
Mm. And the reason why I asked about probiotics is because I've read some stories where people, I don't know whether they have TMAO or not, they took probiotics and they took like higher grade probiotics and then the
Yeah.
smell went away.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you ever read stories like that. I know personally for me, I feel like I had like at least a couple of situations where I took probiotics and then I got less reactions, and I don't know what could be I naturally think the good bacteria overall dominated the bad bacteria or something like that. I don't know,
Mhm. Or
but
kept it
I
in check at
wanted
least.
to know if there was like some more information, or if have you ever heard of
Yeah.
situations like that?
I've also heard of case studies, research where some probiotics are not good for certain types of in fact, it's in the files section of the Facebook uh,
Amoeba
support
root?
groups. Yeah, there are certain bacteria that probiotics that are actually not good for TMAU. So
Mm.
that they show that it actually, I don't remember the case, but it's not good. I think it increases TMA. So
So
it's
there's
good to read that. It says the good bacteria or what bacteria, I mean, what probiotic to use.
there is certain probiotics that can worsen your odor and make you smell worse.
Yeah,
Huh. That's fascinating.
yeah,
I
and
would love to
some
read that.
sufferers have witnessed to that. They've taken it and it actually increased their odor.
Mm.
So it depends if you have TMAU or not. If TMAU is not an issue for you, then you could take it. So,
Mm.
but that paper, one of our members did it. That research looked up all that information from different research studies, and he compiled all that information. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I would love to look into that because,
Yeah.
I've heard some stuff, and maybe I need to start checking which type of probiotics to get too,
Yeah.
because there's so many different variations of probiotics. There's just the tablet forms or whatever, and then there's the ones where you have to refrigerate them, and then
Yeah.
there's like ones with kefir or
Mm-hmm.
kombucha, and then
Yeah.
there's like ones that are just made with dairy. But for me, like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if it's the same with you, but dairy is bad for me. So
Yeah.
that's why I don't really try to get yogurt or,
Right.
get kefir, because I think that's going to worsen my odor. Has that
Yeah.
been the same for you?
Not for me, but I know of my younger son is lactose intolerant, and he has difficulty with certain probiotics. So it has to be the right one for the right for you, and that's the thing. You have to determine which one is good for you, and you could try one, and if that didn't help, then try another. But
Hmm.
first research a little bit and read that paper, um, and see which one is best for you. The one that my gastroenterologist recommended at one time was a line, because that seems to have what they consider to be the basic composition of the intestine. And he recommended that because they had to really kill all the microbes in my intestine. I almost died. But
Really?
I've always been on the verge of death numerous times. But that
Wow.
was because I had diverticulitis, and they didn't want to have to cut part of my intestines off. So, and then he said, right now, your body can actually get a bad virus and you could die. So, or a bug, a bacteria. So he told me start with a line, and I had to take that. I think it was a little higher dose than normal. But then I started with the research that this friend of mine, one of the sufferers did. I saw that there were some others that were actually better for TMAU. But now that I have my situation under control, I don't take probiotics hardly ever. Sometimes I may if I've had
Huh.
diarrhea or something.
Hmm.
That's what I'm saying. There's always the different stages of protocol. That's why my son, the paper he wrote for us, is what he did short term and what he did long term. And now what he's doing is totally different from everything else.
Does he constantly update things of his methods or different things that he tries at the moment, or did he just like make this one paper years ago and that's
He
like
made it years ago, after he had been doing it for a few years, and had the odor under control. He did the phase one, the short term was the crisis mode,
right?
where that was horrific, and he had to just really attack it full force. And then long term is the odor is controlled, and this is what I'm doing. And then he decided that, okay, we discovered that this is all self discovery. The
Hmm.
well, not all, but that's all based on Dr. Shepard's recommendation. But then the final stage is all self discovery, where he discovered that cardiovascular, if he does that, he gets it out of his body, and then he's fine, and he can eat more and add choline to his diet and eat healthy. And that's what he does. And he
Hmm.
even has the emergency of, because he's young, he wants to party
Right.
sometimes, and does has social events and stuff. So um, he has his method of how to cope with that, to be able to have a drink or two, or eat whatever foods they're eating and stuff like
Hmm. That's interesting. I
that.
do want to, or at least get this comment out from a couple of people. One from Jack Mill says, to my understanding, sulfur should be oxidized to by FMO3. So it's a
Hmm.
big no for those who have mutation on the gene, right, Maria?
Hmm. Yeah. Yes, I don't know if it's FMO3. I believe it may to some degree, but I think there are other metabolic processes for sulfur. It may be FMO3. Again, the whole question of genetics. This is where the Monell, the last research Monell did in Philadelphia, indicated that we were always focused on FMO3, and a lot of people got false negative test results under genetic testing because we were only looking at FMO3. They discovered that there's another gene that affects TMAU, and there might be another gene that affects sulfur as well. So um, we can go with, okay, that's what we know now. More research is needed to figure out what other genes there may be. Um, there's in the liver, there's the sulfur pathway, metabolic pathway, and there's the TMA metabolic pathway. Each has its enzymes and its own process, different chemicals. Sulfur and TMA are two different chemicals.
Hmm.
So
And my thing is like, how would you know if you? Well, I guess you would do the T-mal testing because I was going to ask, how would you know if you have some type of sulfur or some
yeah, that
mutation
would be a
in your
whole
body?
other test,
You
not
can't.
necessarily TMAU, right? That might not be the TMAU test at all.
Mm,
That's why we want to do a, I don't know what name we'll give it, but we were thinking about odor or metabolic odor test panel, so that it includes TMA, but we also want to start, and that's what we wanted these scientists to give us feedback as to what type of test should we also include for sulfur. We also had a very good consultant, but unfortunately she retired in the UK, who was a sulfur metabolism expert. In fact, she associated that problems with the sulfur metabolism and autism, of
mm,
the spectrum of autism. So, but unfortunately, she retired, and we can only, we take what we can.
right.
But yeah, we want to do a test. We want to create. That should be the next thing Nebo does. The next big, huge project that Nebo will do should be creating, developing with the experts, not me coming up with some ideas, but with the scientists of the university that we were working with, as well as Irene, of composing a type of blood test or urine test that would look for all these things to try to better understand the sulfur metabolism and TMA metabolism, and to discover what other chemicals we could be having, choline levels in the blood and other different levels in the blood.
Yeah, because my thing is, I feel like there is other conditions. I don't think I really have T-mal, but I know a lot of people feel like they have it or think that they have it because they have the same similar symptoms. But at the same time, there's more of a possibility that they don't have it. And
Mm-hmm.
I naturally just call myself a fecal body odor sufferer because
Uh-huh. That's very accurate.
that's what I usually get. People say, "Oh, you smell like shit," or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I also hear like terms like leaky gas. People have leaky gas. So I'm
Uh-huh.
curious if that's like, I don't know if you ever heard that term.
Yes.
Um, I don't
Yes.
know if that's even T-mal or that's just another whole thing. And is there a way
No,
to
it could
test for
be.
that? And
It could be, but it doesn't have to be. If you analyze feces, what does it have? It has everything, all kinds of chemicals, anything and everything the bacteria produce, or all the microorganisms, not only bacteria, it could be candida and everything else, everything that's in your intestine, and what they've produced from the food that you fed them, and it goes out in the feces. So you can have TMAU, you can have sulfur metabolism deficiency, uh, which again, if you go to your doctor and you say, I think I have a sulfur metabolism deficiency, this is all brand new, something that we're trying to get research on. And
right,
we consulted with some scientists, researchers. Your medical doctor is not going to, because they don't teach that in medical school, because it still has to be research.
right.
But they know there's a sulfur metabolic pathway. I mean, it's nothing new. We all know this. I mean, that's medicine knows this. Um, but that could cause an odor condition, or that could cause an allergic condition, either in the sulfur or others. That they don't know. They don't know because there's not enough research for that, and that's what we need to research.
Mm,
And you can have more than one. And fecal body odor is, there are certain compounds that are fecal,
Right.
right? But then again, like I said, you analyze feces, and it might have that one, but it might also have all the others because it's everything that your microflora in your gut has produced.
Hmm. I don't know. There's some other questions on the chat. Uh, One of the questions is from Harden54, and she asks you, "How about cayenne pepper to increase our blood circulations?"
Hmm. I don't know, cayenne pepper. It might work. I don't know. I haven't tried it. I mean, it's a good question. You could try it if it gets your blood going. I don't know if that would create a chemical that needs to be metabolized. You could try it, and if you don't, if you see that it really hasn't caused any odor, I don't see why not. I eat actually quite not too spicy. I shouldn't say that at all, but I use a pepper on my food because I'm trying to bring down the salt. Um, because I don't want to retain liquid, which also is a good thing to not retain fluids. If you retain fluids, that means your body, instead of getting it out, it's stuck in your skin. That's
Right.
what water retention is. So if it helps you not retain liquid and it helps you decrease salt, that would be good too. So you got
Mm.
to see how it works for you, and always remember what works for one person may not work for another.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. And I know there's another question from Brown Skin, or another question, and this is from Brown Skin Princess.
Okay.
And but I don't know what she really meant. I think we were talking about probiotics, and she asked, "So which ones would she recommend?" Maybe she was asking
That
that
could
when we were
be.
talking
Yeah,
about
probably.
probiotics.
I'll have to look up that paper because I forget. It's in the files section of the Mebo Patum and TMAU group, support group, and the Mebo support group. So, and I'll post it back up live so that people can refer to it about which are good. But the ones that paper is really all about what's good for TMAU. So I don't know about for others.
Another comment I got from the chat is from Xerxu, and he says, "Yes, diverticulitis.
Hmm.
Did you have chronic constipation? Was the stool always
Yeah.
struck in the sigmoid colon? Was the a structure at the rectosigmoid junction?" Wow.
Hmm. Okay. I had IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and with diarrhea and constipation. So there were times where I had constipation, and that's how I eventually developed diverticulitis, which are little pockets that, in other words, it's like the skin of the intestine, like it's really stretched and creates little pockets where it can get infected, and when it gets infected and it bursts, then feces gets into the blood, and that's where you die because no,
Wow.
that's you get sepsis. Mine didn't burst, but it was almost going to burst. So it was really, really bad. So I was a whole week in the hospital with IVs, and I couldn't even take iced chips. Nothing. They wanted to just totally stop my intestines from even moving, and just antibiotics in the vein for a whole week, a whole cocktail of them.
Wow.
So, but yes, it's that whole constipation that does that. And the thing with IBS as well is if you have the combination of diarrhea, then you have it irritates the whole wall of the uterus, and I'm sorry, of the intestine, and then you get the constipation, and then you get the diverticulitis. So the whole thing's a mess.
Hmm.
What I had to do is change my diet, add fiber to my after they cleaned all that infection, and then probiotics, but then have fiber. You add fiber to your diet to make sure you're regular. And whatever medicine they gave me, I forgot what it was, to help. not have that irritable bowel syndrome, but that was just short term. The way to control irritable bowel syndrome is number one, try to relax. If you are too anxious, you need mental health therapy. You need to relax because, and that's something that Chrisan, our mental health director, she's going to talk about how close the mental state is goes hand in hand with odor. That's going to be the next topic of the support group because she's doing a support group every 2 months, I think.
Oh, every 2 months.
Yeah.
Do you know the date or the time? The next.
Yes. Let me see. Where did she? Here. This month it's going to be in August. Is it August? Well, she'll be announcing it very very soon because we just emailed it and she agreed. No, September 8th.
September 8th.
September 8th. She's going to have that discussion, and she does also the monthly. It used to be monthly, now it's like bi-monthly column where she's also going to discuss how close and how important. It's almost like what comes first, the chicken or the egg, in how the emotions and the mental state affects the hormones, the intestines, um, even illnesses. Like I lost my hearing just not too long ago. I was really sick, and they measured my eardrum just sort of paralyzed, and I think it had to do with my husband had a heart attack, and things were going on, and I was having some emotional things happening in my life, and
Right.
and it was almost like I don't want to hear anymore. And my eardrum just paralyzed. Now
Wow.
it's back, and it's all back. And then I had the vertigo. It was horrible. And
Mhm.
so she's going to elaborate on that.
Yeah, because I do recall reading some article about there's a significant link between the gut bacteria in your intestines and your brain. Like I think there's some correlation between how the gut or the bacteria in your gut can affect your mood, or if you do have, let's say you do have a lot of stress, that can affect your gut bacteria. There is some type of
Yes,
strong link, uh,
yes,
and it's so weird because it's like with this condition, you often get sad and stressed, which then just worsens
yes.
your
It's
immune.
downward spiral, definitely.
So it's like, I mean, I don't know. It's just I do want to ask you this too, since you say you got it under control. For
Mhm.
me, I always feel like I can't really eat too much stuff. I always feel like everything I eat is gonna just make me smell worse. Even when like I'm on such a limited diet, which actually I want to have a conversation with you about
Yes,
Danny Coons. I don't know if you ever heard of him. I know
yes.
I saw him on the
He's the
Mevo
one
Pod.
who did the whole thing on histamine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I know he made some type of fecal body odor diet thing.
Yes.
Found out that there's like several different amino acids and some other things that will actually give you a fecal odor. I
Uh-huh.
think one was like tyrosine,
Uh-huh.
and or something, and sugar and whatever. And he
Yes.
created this list, and he has a high, very high things that have very high that will
Uh-huh.
contribute to fecal odor, and very low lists. So I started to try to follow the low list, and
Yes.
there was like potato. There were very little things you could eat on the low list.
Right.
There were like potatoes, white rice or rice,
Right.
avocados, celery, whatever.
Right.
And I started to follow that for the last couple of weeks, but nonetheless, I still get off an odor. So it's like it makes me feel like I don't know
Yeah.
what to eat.
Okay.
And a lot of people say just eat healthy, so they
Yeah.
would also talk about eating fruit or whatever. But the problem is like that's probably gonna make me give off a fecal odor, at least
Mm-hmm.
according to this diet list. So it always makes me confused and a little bit unsure of trying to eat certain things.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that.
Right. That's very similar to what my son was going through with the TMAU protocol, the diet, the low choline diet. I mean, we could, it's good to have those charts of high choline, and in this case, high whatever it is, the ones that produce fecal odor, and then go down to the lowest, and high choline and goes down to the lowest. But like that one sufferer who just did only the very, very, very lowest, ended up in intensive care.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean that you should just limit yourself to the very lowest. It just means avoid the very highest. Um, Try to go like from the bottom up, looking for a well balanced diet that has fruits, vegetables, protein, carbs. And then when you are working with the low and fiber, don't forget that fiber, because that fiber is what your intestines need.
Hmm.
And then once you say, okay, this sounds like a diet I can do that is healthy, that is good for me, on the lower end of this chart, because my concern is fecal body odor. In TMAU, you would do it then on the other chart, on the colon chart. Um, then you say, okay, now since I'm teetering on the odor foods, I need to do cardiovascular. And then you do that whole game plan, and in your mind, keep in mind, your body will go into overdrive to clean out your blood. Drink a lot of water. Do a lot of cardiovascular exercise. It starts to come out. It's going to smell a little stronger. So make sure you start all that when not on the hottest date of your life. You do
Right.
it on the right time,
Yeah.
and then once you clean it all out, eventually it starts going down and down and down, because there's less in your blood. You'll be healthier, your intestines will be working better, and your blood is clean. That's
Mm,
how I would approach it.
and another.
Danny gave us that really good chart. Danny gave us a lot of good information.
Mm. Another thing I wanted to ask you is like, do you feel limited on your diet? Do you feel like, man, I can't really enjoy foods? Because it's like
Yeah,
there's not going to be too many recipes that are going to be really delicious. At least for me, when I think about it, like a lot of times I just like eat a baked potato, or I just eat like boiled or just corn or something. I can't like make like a
mm,
pasta and include those things. Like there's very limited options you can have to create certain foods.
yeah, and that's not good either.
Have over
But
the
yes,
years
I understand what
found
you're
a
saying.
good recipe.
Yes. What I suggest is size, the size of the food that you eat. Include satisfying foods, even though they might be a little higher on the chart, but reduce the amount. Rarely people have a metabolic pathway that doesn't work at all. It happens. There are some people who are really suffering with that. But in general, what we have is degrees of function, on a weakened and deficient metabolic pathway. So it could handle some. So make sure that whatever you're going to give yourself is what you really like.
Right.
If you're going to give yourself, um, you have to. We're human beings. In fact, if you stop and think about how human beings were when we used to, not have this modern society or whatever, we used to roam around and food gathering and whatever, and hunting or whatever, it frequently was feast and famine, because yeah, okay, well, right now we don't have food. We got to try to find the animal we got to kill to eat or whatever, and days pass and you don't do it. You could see it in the wild animals. And then when they get the food, they'll eat that whole animal, and when they can hardly walk, they're so full. And that's been how we evolved. Um, so we need to feel that satisfaction of feasting. And so we need to work psychologically with our food. Again, wisely, intelligently, each person differently, because everybody's, and also if you're under tremendous stress, like when I couldn't hear, boy, that odor triggered. And because I was feeling horrible. The whole world was moving around on me and
Yeah.
everything, and the odor triggered. So no matter what I ate or didn't eat, but then again, I had to work through that, relax myself, I'm back to normal again. And like we had, my daughter-in-law is sick, and so I made her this incredible souffle with eggs. And I just looked at it and I go, boy, I'm dying to eat that. So what I did is I just cut off the little bits in the end, and I ate them. Seems like I feel like I did something wrong, but I ate them, and um, and now I know that, yeah, I gotta tomorrow I'm gonna do some gardening, and I'm gonna sweat a lot, and I'm gonna get red in the face, and get that heart going.
Right.
And my husband will probably say, "Okay, you ready to go take a shower now?" And so I'll go and I'll take a shower, and I'll be fine.
Because
See?
I do want to ask you this too. Since you said you did have T-Mal type 2,
Uh-huh.
and you had to deal with it, maybe not to the extreme case as your son,
Right.
but you did have your issues and stuff. I
Yeah.
did want to ask you how like you and your husband met, and was he able to detect your odor at that time, or
Yeah.
was it like later on he found out that you had
No, no,
something
no.
going on?
He
He
noticed.
knew.
Yeah. Because I didn't know what TMAU was. I didn't know it
Mm-hmm.
existed. I mean, it was later when our son was 21 years old that I knew it. And like I said, his favorite hobby is the ocean. He's also Cuban. So we're used to, in fact, we were so impoverished when I met him because he had just come from Cuba. But the first thing after he got the car and the mattress, then between him and me, we bought a boat. And we would
Wow.
go fishing. I mean, a little boat. And we went fishing and we just ate fish and we would go catch lobsters. It was a big thing, just, every weekend.
And that would probably made you smell
But
really
yeah,
bad.
that was not good for me.
Yeah.
He didn't care because, you see, I knew I had a problem. I didn't know that was the source that was triggering it. And he just enjoyed so much, and I enjoyed so much being with him, and we were doing the things we loved to do. And so it was like, okay, yes, I got to brush my teeth so many times a day. It was crazy, which really was senseless because it came from the lungs. But I didn't know that, and so we just worked around it,
Hmm.
and I would just shower more. And
Would he ever tell you? Because I know there's some people who have like relationship with partners who feel like they don't tell them the truth
I know I
that they
hate that.
smell bad.
I hate that.
Has he was he just upfront and honest with you throughout the whole your whole
Well,
relationship,
when we
even
first
in the
met, he
beginning?
wasn't going to just say, "Oh my God, your breath is." He would, but eventually, when we got closer, he would tell me, and I would appreciate it, and I would tell him, "Yeah, thanks. Let me know." Or, but I think initially it was like, "You want some gum?" and things like,
Mm,
or "Wow, your hair is oily today," that kind of thing.
uh,
See, but
oh,
eventually it was like, "Okay, you need to take a shower." Now it's like, "Okay, boy, you really need to take a shower." Oh, okay.
would that upset you sometimes? Like
No,
hearing that, like no.
no. In
Mm,
fact, it just became sort of, it sounds sick, but it's sort of like an endearing thing. It's an intimate, okay, yeah, like I trust you to enter that space with me.
hmm.
And I know you love me anyway.
Right,
And in fact, you're telling me because you love me. He doesn't say it mean, but
right.
he'll tease maybe. He'll say it in a teasing way, like, woof, something like that. And
Well,
I go, oh, yeah? Yeah, okay.
well,
There's a little flirtation even
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, because it's like you know the person, they're not trying to offend you.
Right.
They're just joking with you. Do you
Yes.
feel that's the same way with possibly? I don't know what you were doing prior to Mebo, um, but do you feel the same way with friends or like coworkers?
Yeah,
Because
no,
I
there I
also
would
know
be a
like
little more sensitive. There I would be like, be careful how you tell me things. You're not intimate with me like my
right,
husband. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So I don't feel, it's more like, okay, say it nice if you're going to say anything. But I could just
Because-
read their body language.
exactly. Because I know, like, just reading some comments on the Amiibo forums. So every now and then I would read some stuff from somebody that would say, "Oh, somebody offered me a stick of gum," and they take it. I mean, I wouldn't actually take it as disrespect as well, you
Right.
know. And I think, hearing what you're saying with you and your spouse, I mean, it would be completely different with when it's like a coworker and stuff, because you find it
Right.
insulting. You find it like, especially when you're trying your hardest to try to reduce the
I know.
and nonetheless people still say, they hint that you smell bad, or they hint that your breath
Yeah.
smells like it bothers you to the point that you don't even
Yeah.
want to go up to work. Has there ever been a part of your life where it, I don't know, this condition was so hard to control that you just couldn't deal with being around people?
Well, no, because mine was never that extreme, and I'm sure my son did. He loves to work from home. Thank God now he's actually got the opportunity to do it. But when he had that problem, he didn't. But what I did, thankfully, in my job, there was a bathroom. In the bathroom, there was a stall that actually had a sink, a private sink there. I would literally go and wash during my lunch break.
Mm,
In private with a sink. I would wash here, I would wash my face, I brush my teeth, you know, whatever it took, and that would reduce it. But then mine is not a severe case. So then it was functional, and I hardly got reactions. It would have to be that maybe I had like eggs and black beans and rice and a lobster the
that's a
day
lot.
before. It was like, oh, boom, and I didn't know. In fact, with my son, I would feed him these foods thinking these are so healthy. I mean, they're straight out of the ocean. We caught it.
Yeah.
And that was making it worse, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying to the person who wanted to know about having children and passing it off to your children. I doubt very much there's no reason why any sufferer would have to do what the errors that I did with my son because it was out of ignorance.
Right.
Now there's a way.
Yeah, there's methods. There's
Yeah,
more information now how
yeah,
to control it.
right.
I do have another comment from the comment section or the chat from
Uh-huh.
Chantel Jenkins, and she asks, "Does her hair have a sour smell, and does she attract flies?"
Sometimes,
Sometimes.
sometimes, and the odor is there. Yes, I hate it. It's unpleasant. I mean, here you are in a restaurant, and like sometimes the outdoor cafe thing,
Yeah,
and you're like, oh,
yeah, and
and
it's
then in the
irritating.
Miami heat, you're sitting there. That's why I prefer not to sit outside sometimes. Sometimes people, sufferers will say, yeah, at least the air will blow it away. Well, it depends. If it's too hot and you start sweating there, it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it could.
I have a question about like doctors and stuff. And I know you talk about Dr. Hazen and Dr. Shepard. I know for my channel, sometimes some people ask me, "Oh, you should invite more doctors on." But the thing is, I don't know any doctors, and I don't know
Yeah.
how I would be able to connect with them and stuff like that. So, is there like what what would you think would be a good way to try to invite doctors on, regardless if it's Dr. Hazen or not? Because I did try to get the guy from the Monell Center. I forgot his name.
Pretty.
Yes, Dr. Preddy. I tried to email Dr. Preddy, but at that time there was like a family emergency, and
Yeah.
then I just spoke to his customer rep, and he said, "Oh, Dr. Preddy doesn't actually want to actually do interviews because."
Yeah, he's one of the more difficult ones to get.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would you think? I mean, what would you suggest if I should? How would I go about getting like interviews with doctors? Because I mean, I think it would be better for the person who's like researching it to explain
Uh-huh.
it to people who are suffering it, and
Yeah.
then we can, just like we have these chat comments happening. I
Uh-huh.
can be like, hey, this is what this person says, and you can answer it, or she can answer it, or whatever. What
Yeah.
what do you feel about that? Like,
I think that's great if Rare Connect did webinars. Well, they helped. It was a joint effort between Delta, between me, but I used to work for Delta, between Mebo and Rare Connect to get experts to do webinars with us. And even Preddy did it. But that's because they had Rare Connect, which is from Eurordis, and that's a world renowned uh, organization like NORD in the United States. This is the European version. Um, but not so much because it was Meagle, you know.
Hmm.
Not with him actually. Remember his test, TMAU test was $400 plus shipping plus whatever, and now it's 600, and Meeble was doing it for 150.
Mm.
So Meeble's not the best on their list, but
Oh, I
yes,
thought you had like such a good connection with each other.
uh-huh.
Like you guys were like hand in hand, or I didn't know it was like
Meeble was a
you're
new
like
guy in
competing with
town
each
that
other or
took away
something.
their business.
Wow.
That's how. And we insisted on bringing in TMAU2, and they were only focused on TMAU1. So there wasn't much compatibility there. But then we have Dr. Shepard. Look and see in the webinars who we did webinars with, and that would give you ideas. And I will consult with the director, um, one of the NEBO persons that does the scouting that reaches out to all these experts to see if we can get any of them. Maybe especially if we start, I'm sure that if we start the test panel, that that university might want to have a representative interview with you. Yeah, we
Hmm.
can work on that. Yes, I think it's a good idea. I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm just saying that that's probably why you got that response from Dr. Craig. Plus, he's not that the most social type person.
And another thing, I actually forgot what I was gonna say.
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I know you said I think there's like for a lot of universities sometimes they do like testing or do like these little research projects and stuff.
Yes.
Is that like a better way to possibly get funding? I think Mebo did something like that. I think you reached out to FIU, I believe, to get some type of
Yeah,
funding.
in FIU, because that's where I graduated from, um, what they helped me do, the School of Law, they helped me set up MEBO, register MEBO as a charity in the United States. But I haven't had much luck, and I think another sufferer who lives here in South Florida, she tried getting the research department to take interest in us, I think, but it didn't go through. And most of the time, it's a shot and it doesn't work.
Right.
Every once in a while, you'll get somebody who really. So it's just because it didn't work once doesn't mean it won't work again. So we can always keep trying and keep trying and keep trying until one day something gives. But would have to go with some kind of theory of we would like to study this and that. We have to go with a plan.
Mm. I do want to ask you this too. I know throughout the years, I had this for at least 15 years. Um, and I've read so many theories about why we smell. The common one is Candida. Another common one is possibly like you have loose sphincter muscles in your anus or something like that. Uh, I never heard like a professional or someone who has more knowledge about this thoughts about Candida or leaky gut or having a loose sphincter muscle. What are your thoughts on it? Because I naturally, initially, I thought it was real, but until I started looking into Candida more, I never saw any evidence that linked body odor to Candida at all. Neither have I heard that for leaky gut. So I like after a couple of years, I just didn't believe it anymore. Neither with the sphincter muscles, so I don't believe that either. But
Mhm.
I do want to hear like from a person who's more knowledgeable or maybe read some things and have their own thoughts about it. What's your
Mhm.
take on possibly Candida contributing to odor or leaky gut or having loose sphincter muscles or whatever?
Uh-huh. I think all of the above could be the reason, a cause for different people. depending. Some people actually live where they live. There's a lot of mold in the environment. Um, the foods maybe that they eat or whatever in the environment in which they live, it could cause candida, an overgrowth of candida. That's a yeast or a mold. You can have different microorganisms that can invade and create havoc depending on where you live. You know, here in South Florida, you can be in a very moldy home. I've gone into old people's home, for example, and they lose their sense of smell. And you walk in and you go, my God, there's mold all over these walls. At the
Mm.
beach, when I go to the beach, you know, you see actually the black on the walls and they're not seeing it. That happened to my aunt. She was renting to a senior citizen and there was mold on the wall and the woman didn't even realize it.
Hmm.
And so that eventually that gets into her system and like that, you know, you can get any kind of microbial depending on where you live. Um, or if you work a lot with the dirt, you know, outside, you could get some germs. You know, I didn't know, and I was petting my feral cat, and my when I had that problem in my ear, the doctor said, you know, you shouldn't be touching your feral cat. So now I just wear gloves, and I pet her with the gloves.
Wow.
But because they roll on dead animals. I wasn't thinking about the fact that yeah, they roll on dead animals, and here I am touching dead animals indirectly. The bacteria the bacteria that produces all that. So yeah, you could have different types. The problem is how to diagnose it. There are some tests that they do for candida, but I think that in many cases, a lot of the tests that are done, they measure high dose or high amounts. And I think that when in our case, frequently we're working with low, undetectable things that, according to the normal medical tests that are being done, you know.
Mm.
Um, so some people do some tests and they determine that they have candida and they treat it with the diet mainly and they find improvement. So how can I go in and say, no, I don't agree with that? It would be just like the doctor saying, oh, you don't smell or you don't have an odor condition or you don't know why you have an odor condition because they don't know because they haven't been researched. Because there's no money ever invested for odor or pattern research.
Yeah. Because now I want to ask about. Oh, I think I already asked that, so I'm not going to ask that again. But
Okay.
I will read another comment from the comment section. Blueberry asks, "Does she take certain probiotic supplements, etc.?"
I take fish oil because the oil doesn't actually have uh, the TMA, and that's very high in antioxidants. I take turmeric. I take vitamin B complex. Vitamin B complex strengthens the liver big time.
Hmm.
Um, what else? I think that's pretty much it. Oh well, I have to take calcium because I'm a senior citizen. Um, I take other stuff for health, but mainly for odor those.
Mm. I noticed you didn't say anything about like chlorophyll or anything, because that's like a common thing people use.
Yeah, and that's good for the first phase.
Oh,
After a
but
while, I mean, you could take it anytime. It doesn't hurt. It's actually
mm.
very good. If you eat a lot of green, I put a lot of greens in my protein shake, but it's not really protein. Well, it is, but it's a special one that they gave me for my liver. Um, my gastroenterologist. It's one of these. It's called Ideal Protein. Where's my
I,
phone? Ideal Protein.
mm.
And then I take
And
that.
that's good for T-mal for people who have T-mal.
It hasn't hurt me. It hasn't triggered my odor. And then I put a banana, and then I get salad. What do you call the green, the spring baby spring mix, and I throw it in there, and that's really helpful because then I put a lot of salads, you know, a lot of greens that have chlorophyll.
Mm-hmm.
and then I have a little bit of broccoli for dinner.
Yeah, because I was thinking about getting. I think this goes into another topic I want to talk about protein. So, a lot of these meats and stuff have high choline, and you don't want to eat all of it because you
Right.
don't want to smell bad. And I
Right.
was thinking about like protein shakes and protein powders, but I know
Hmm.
like the
You
common
gotta
ones
be
are like
careful.
whey protein or protein with
Yeah.
brown rice. What type of like protein shake thing are you taking? Is there a
Well, this is
specific?
what my gastroenterologist told me to take to get my liver to function again. It's
Is it a
yeah,
prescription or can you find it at a?
I get it. I can get it in eBay sometimes too.
Hmm.
It's called Ideal Protein. It does have an artificial flavor, but not that much, and it's just really healthy
Mm.
because it's not fattening. It doesn't have sugar. Um, has a little bit of sodium. It's not high on anything that's bad. It's not high in fat, and I just have one because mainly of that salad, those greens that I have, the baby spring mix greens. Um, they they're too strong for me to eat. Like I don't like it. Or
They're
I'll have
strong
to
for
put
you?
salad dressing. So I just throw a lot of it into this with. So I eat a lot of that salad, which is chlorophyll and
Mm,
fiber to get me regular. But I get
mm.
only once a day.
So do you feel that like salad dressing makes you smell worse? Because
Yeah,
I
some
start
of
to
it.
eat like salads too, and I'm starting to feel like maybe I shouldn't put. I create my own salad dressing. Basically, it just has apple cider vinegar, lemon,
Perfect.
and
Does it give you
oil.
heartburn?
Huh?
Does it give you heartburn?
No,
Okay, good. So you don't have GERD.
no.
Okay, that's perfect then for you. You could
Yeah,
also add
but
a little bit of mustard. Mustard is okay. No,
mustard.
that, I mean,
Mustard on
yeah,
salad. That's interesting.
mustard-based salad dressing, or you could add mustard to that, and then just experiment like you're doing and see
Mm,
what you like, just for a change of flavor.
right.
Yeah, vinaigrette, balsamic vinegar. That's,
Balsamic vinegar.
yeah, because that one has DMB.
What is DMB?
DMB is supposedly good for the intestine to not produce. It's not conducive to producing TMA in the gut.
That is very interesting. I have to look into that.
Yeah.
Um, but another question I got from the comments is from Chantel Jenkins, and she asked, "How does she feel about a protest for awareness?
A what?
A protest for
Oh,
awareness?
for awareness. How would she do that? Because we're all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it depends. Yeah. I mean, I like all the awareness. I like what somebody posted in the support group with the where is it? It's in the Meebo support group, not the Pattern, I think. And where it shows the T-shirt, it shows. There's also the Rare Disease Day that's February 28th of every year. We can really try to organize and do some raising awareness through that because that system already opens up the whole raising awareness throughout the world. So they have a lot of like NIH is there. Oh, here it is. AJ Person did announcing the second meeting that we're going to have for anybody who wants to volunteer to do projects. And she has a T-shirt there: trimethylnuria, hypermethylnemia, H. pylori, SIBO, celiac. All those cause odor. See, malabsorption, hormonal imbalance, liver damage. They have that on the T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the bracelet that it says invisible disabilities.
Mm,
So these are things that we can use. And it says here, I'm not my chronic illness. So different things that we could do, whatever we need to brainstorm
right.
to raise awareness.
Yeah, that's true. Hmm. Well, we're winding down here.
Yeah, I'm getting
I do
tired.
want to ask you, is it okay for me to put out your email if somebody wants to contact you?
Yes, but use the Maria. You could use Maria at meboresearch.org. That's
Maria.
the easiest. But
Okay.
.org.
Mm, all right. And for the people in the chat, if you have any final questions, this is the time to ask them. I also want to ask you, let's say there's somebody who's watching this, uh, who I don't know, who relates to a lot of things that you were talking about, um, and who is struggling at the moment. Is there any like final thoughts or insight you would like to give that person?
Yes. Um, Take your time. I know you're desperate and you want to resolve it yesterday. It's a process. Don't arrive at the conclusion that this is not working just because it's taking a while. Don't give up on yourself. Always stay in touch if you can with the support group. Um, don't do this on your own. It's overbearing. We have all kinds of support in so many ways on methods of doing things, uh, the emotional support with our mental health guidance. The expert, she's actually a mental health therapist. Um, and just reach out to others, and not only those that need the help, but those that have found that something works for you. Say it, write it, share it in the group. Say, hey, I just did this and I think it's working. Does somebody else want to try it and give us feedback? Let's work together as a group. I don't have all the answers.
Hmm.
There's no way. So we learn from each other. Read a lot of, go to the meboblog.com. Mebo right, what is it? Meboblog.com. Because there, look for experts. Just type in keywords: experts, interviews, webinars, and see what the experts tell us. It's all posted there. They've done interviews for us. They've done like Danny Kuntz, like you're saying. He's done a lot. Look under Mevo annual conferences and meetups, and you'll have all the presentations the experts have done. I mean, there's a lot of information. If you don't know where to look for it, ask under the Mevo support, and they'll help you. They'll guide you find it.
Okay. All right. And I don't see any other questions. I really appreciate you, Maria, for coming in. We
Whoa.
did this for like
And
2 hours.
thank
I
you. I
really
know
wanted to
I'm
ask you.
exhausted.
Wanted to ask you a lot of stuff. So I know. Sorry
Well,
for
thank
taking so
you
long.
for doing this. This is so important. And I know that you've interviewed many people too, sufferers, and get their perspective. But always encourage people to go back to the group, share with the group, learn from the group, and help the group, because it is the group support that keeps us together. And I love the fact that you and Ben are talking about doing the Meebo media package. I don't know what it is you're doing, what you're going to call it. You don't know about it. Ask Ben about it, because we need to have a Meebo channel. That's what it is, a Meebo channel. Where we can put all this video that you guys do, all these interviews that you do in one place, so that we can refer sufferers to them. With maybe a place like, okay, topics, like right here, when you're done, maybe give it a topic, like you do, Maria, interview with Maria, and that's one, but with others as well, so that it becomes resource to the whole community.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely would like to do that. I don't know. Ben never told me anything about media, but I guess I have to ask him right after this interview. But
Yeah.
yeah, I
Okay.
appreciate you for coming on, and I appreciate all the people who joined in with us.
Thank
This
you.
is another interview, and we are out of here.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Okay.